I just request everybody to
Good evening.
keep your mic turned off as of now. I think it's 5:30. Can we start off, Mr. Arup?
Yes, please do. Please go ahead.
Well, this is Mr. Banerjee, the technical organizer for the program, and I extend my sincere welcome. I just take a second to share with you a screen. Well, I extend my sincere welcome to all the participants as well as to our esteemed panelists for this Zoom meet. And it just happened that our panel chair, Mr. Arup Mukhopadhyay, threw a question in one of our social media platforms, which speaks about, can schools be the same again? A very intriguing question indeed, and that's how we started planning about this webinar. My sincere welcome to all the panelists, speakers, once again for the evening. The world of work is undergoing a paradigm change because of COVID-19, and the focus has suddenly shifted from growth to survival. No one is really sure when recovery actually will start off. That's the point we are going to talk about today. So we are looking forward to a very fruitful discussion with our eminent panelists to find out how will the COVID-19 pandemic alter the future of teaching and learning today. I'll just not take any much more time. I just take you through some basic rules before we pass on to Mr. Arup before he takes it over. A few points like all of us are required to keep the mic turned off most of the time, except when we speak as per the turn. And here we will be asking the panelists to speak one by one. And each speaker would be allotted 3 minutes to share his views and give the solutions or suggestions as per the topic. And we need to complete the webinar within 40 minutes. And as we have not subscribed, so we need to take care of the time. And the entire duration of the webinar would be recorded and converted to YouTube for circulation, and I'll be sending you the link so that you can again see it later on for use. Thank you once again, and I would like to pass on to Mr. Arup Mukhopadhyay, the panel chair for today, to take over and proceed with the session.
Sai, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. So wonderful to meeting you all. So after a long time, I see a lot of faces, my bosses, my colleagues, my students, my teachers, my fellow friends. So it's wonderful to be there, all of us. And I think it started when I had first talked to Aditya, Mr. Aditya Gupta. And we had a discussion that how the school would look like once the school reopened. I mean, there is no other way than that we can keep the school closed for 18 months until the vaccine is come. But so we thought that there's a time the school need to open and how the school would look like and what the leaders, the educators would take it forward. So can we go to the first one? I mean, I think you need to all laugh together. Look at the slide and all of you need to look, oh God, please reopen the school soon. Ma'ams are better than moms. Children are dying to come back to school. So this is a very lighter moment. So I think we cannot say no. We need to come to the school. So my first point was, what I thought of, discarding the strategy, the post-COVID-19 strategy to manage risk of school reopening. I think we always say the plans are worthless, but planning is very, very important. See, the date of opening the school cannot be fixed. It's uncertain. It cannot be like after Christmas or after summer vacation date, because by inviting that, by opening the school, we can get a second strike again. So I think we need to be very, very calculative. That is why the date of opening need to be very calculative, very planned, and then we need to work it out. Can I go to the second point, what I need to discuss, that which would be the second slide. The second slide, I'd like to talk about how we like to work it on. Because the fear, the parents are really, really scared whether they'll be able to send the children to school or not. Even you'll be wondering that I spoke to some parents and the younger children of the elementary and preschool, they told me, we are not going to send our children to school this year, this academic year. This academic year begins in some parts of the world in the month of April, and the plan is that if we drop the school year for a younger children, because it will not be doing much, transition from online school to brick mortar school. When the children will come back to the brick mortar school, what kind of arrangement we have to receive them? Whether they would be interested to come back to school, there will be a tremendous fear in mind of the parents. I am really wondering. I have another 1/3 of the staff member, those who have been recruited from outside, whether they will be liking to moving in or they don't like to come back to school. So that will be the transition from online school to brick mortar school. So that is a big question I think we need to address. So can we go to the third one? The third point we check are the safety and security of students and staff, which is a paramount important. Whether mask, gloves, this would be the part of the school uniform or not. Whether the school staff members start the front office wearing mask, wearing the gloves, regular sanitization, working or not, we need to see that whether it will be possible, whether it is feasible or not. So then only we can ensure that the safety and security of the students and the staff. Then staggering break, staggering classroom, school can run in 3 shifts. So because if it is 1,000 students school, 3 or 250 or somewhere at the school, because social distancing, maintaining social distancing in a school would be a big joke otherwise. Because in a classroom, 20, 25, 30 students, younger children, you cannot say them don't touch. So that how we'll be able to manage it. Because simply opening the school, we do not want another second infection. So safety and security would be of a paramount important of this hour. My next point would be confidence building mechanism of stakeholders. When the parents come and visit the school, what are the things they will be like to see? If they can't find out that okay, your bus is full of 30 students, for 50 students, your classroom of 25, 30 students, they will not be confident at all. The teachers, those who are coming from different places, traveling, coming back to the school, they may not be able to very happy to come back to school. So confidence building mechanism will be a very, very important, and I think we need to take it very sincerely that how the parents should be confident, yes, I can send my kids here. Now I come to my next point. The next point, which is I'd like to discuss with you, once we build up the confidence, then will come how to address children emotional and social needs. Emotional and social need, the children come to school not from learning. It's a kind of a socialization. When you call the children and ask them, cannot play all the whole class. When you come and tell them, you cannot go to the cafeteria together. You cannot go here and there. So you cut off the socialization process. The emotional need, see, the children feel really happy and they like to share the tiffin. Okay, they bring the tiffin, bring the snacks from home and they share. So those are the things whether we'll be able to do that. If you are not able to do that, how we need to do that and how we need to calibrate. The calibration at this hour would be very important. So all the panelists would be speaking on those issues. Can we go to the next point? So this will be the point in which we'd like to address certain issues after we do the school fees versus staff welfare. There is already talk going on that the parents may not be interested to pay the school fees because the transport not functioning, classes are not going on, though online classes are going on. There's a lot of investment from the school side, okay, for the IT, for the edutech, all the things, but still parents feel not going to physical school will be able to reduce the fees or the fee waiver or the reduced fees or how the fee to be structured. Already we have heard that many district education officers, the governors, and in some cases of the school board ask the school not to charge the fees, not to ask for fees at this time. Okay? So now, if the school, they do not generate the revenue, how the school would be able to look at the staff welfare? No other organization would be able to run without generating the revenue. And the school, private school, I mean, you can say independent school, we mostly run on the school fees that generate the revenue. So that would be the challenging question, that how we'll be taking care of staff welfare and the maintenance of all the things if we get the message that you cannot charge 2 months, 3 months, or some parts of the fees. That would be another question mark, and we should be ready with our revenue planning. Now I come back to the next point. Once we address the school fees versus welfare, so can we come back to the next point? Restructuring of curriculum and assessment. If a part of the school year is cut, how to calibrate the curriculum and assessment? What kind of assessment will be planning it? Can the pen paper test could be good enough, or what part we have already taught online? Whether the school students come back to the physical school or the brick and mortar school, whether that part of the curriculum or the syllabus need to be covered again, and if it is covered again, what would be the portion, what would be the syllabus we need to include in our examination pattern, and how the assessment pattern will be doing, and whether the COVID-19 to be a part of a syllabus from first standard to class 12 sixth form. If the COVID-19 is a part of our curriculum, that how the weightage to be decided, how the curriculum to be decided. So that's another challenge before the school start. I think all the educational board, affiliating board, examination bodies need to really find it out. Now I come to my next one. Unconditioning behavior. This is very, very important in the sense that the behavior is practice which is for years after years. So the practicing things years after years, we become conditioned or become conditioned. We have seen what made us a risk of the COVID-19 is our behavior. Because especially the adolescents, especially the young people, went to pubs, went to the beaches. They're haywires, and which spread the infection. So unless and until we are trying to change our behavior, unconditioning ourselves, how the unconditioning to be addressed. In some parts of the world, we taught the children in a school good touch, bad touch. Will we teach the students safe touch, showing the different kind of audiovisual and address the safe touch? So unconditioning behavior, children, I think we need to have a strategy. And my next point, in which I just want to discuss change in the lifestyle. There is a huge change in the lifestyle. I wonder, I was listening to a wonderful person, okay, and he was saying, maybe the sale of the car may go very, very high. Dr. Raghuram Rajan, who was the former RBI governor, was telling, maybe after COVID-19, the sale of car may go very high, because many parents would prefer, and the children will prefer not to travel by the private transport. So I was wondering that many children may not opt for the school transport and come by their own. So when they come by their own, so there will be a change in the lifestyle. You cannot go to the restaurant. You will be scared of going to the restaurant. You will be scared of going to the mall. You cannot go for the religious practices. So complete change in lifestyle, how the school will be addressed. And my last point, which I need to talk about, knowing is not equal to doing. We know everything, and knowing is not even half doing. So I think we need to really know that when you know something, we really practice, which will completely change the shift and gearing it for the post-COVID-19 practice. Thank you very much. May I request Mr. Robert Ford. Robert Ford is the director of Heritage International School from Moldova. I request Mr. Robert Ford to speak, please.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Is that, yes, good. I'll begin. Pashta Farachit, happy Easter from the Orthodox Eastern Europe. It's a holiday for us here, vacation. I'm really fascinated with all the points you've raised, Arup, and I know this takes our thinking even beyond trying to cope with the operational day-to-day issues that this has presented. For us in Moldova, we were slightly ahead of the curve, and I'm proud to say, when you look at what is happening in the UK and in the United States, where there is almost still a sense that this isn't happening. You see that in the messages from the government, from the Prime Minister, from the President. You see that confusion and those ambiguities getting into leaders at school levels, in hospitals, people trying to understand these rules of social distancing. It's being driven in the UK a lot by economics and not science. There's a huge debate, I know, about just wanting to get children back to school, and yet the numbers of cases are still rising so rapidly because of the different approaches taken. If you look across Europe, in countries really hit bad by this, Italy, Spain, I'm very proud of what Moldova did, which was recognize immediately the crisis for what it was, saw what was happening with its neighbors, and closed borders, closed frontiers. Now at Heritage International School, we implemented a distance learning plan. We were able to look at other schools in Hong Kong, in China, and see the reality of this operational taking the school online. Now we had the digital capabilities, but there are private schools in this country with money that didn't have the leadership, as it were, or the recognition that this crisis was going to last as long as it did. So in some respects, it's not necessarily even about resources. And we've made the point all the time about context and community. You have to find the solution that fits your community. Now, this is our 7th week about to begin on the distance learning. I have an entire school reprofessionalized. My colleagues are incredible in the way that they've embraced this. My parents, my founders, my students, in how we want meaningful learning every day. We want routines, we want structures. So there's the operational side of things now, which we are coping with, and the demands of social distancing and isolation. And the points I think you've raised there then bring us to our strategic thinking, which is there is no way, I'm not a scientist, so I don't want to get to the language of science. I'm a school leader, but I can't see how restrictions will suddenly be lifted off. And I think you're absolutely right that we have to think about curriculum. We have to think about the bus issue. That hadn't occurred to me so much. A lot of our children come in by private cars anyway. But at the same time, we're seeing the impact on climate change. We're seeing cleaner cities, cleaner rivers. We're seeing what happens when our economic activities change. So we all know that this is not going to take us back to the normals before March and February. And in some respects, we don't want to go back to those normals. There are many positives that I'm seeing with the blended learning, the flipped classrooms, the independent students that are emerging in all of this. At the heart, though, is, for me as an educator, is the Socratic tradition that the relationship between a good teacher and a student in a class and physically seeing each other, all those things perhaps we took for granted before this crisis have now come back into the center of our thinking again. And it's producing the thinking, it's producing the leaders, it's producing the strategies. What I think education can be proud of, and you see this in all sorts of classrooms around the world and schools, is that locally we've taken control. If we've got good governments like we have here in Moldova that are giving us the ability, then we can actually implement these solutions that fit our community. And you can see that in different countries around the world. We have to get to the 31st of May. That's when our school academic year ends. But it doesn't end for us as school leaders, because as Arap, as you said, we then have to think of, we have a summer school. We're hoping we can still do a summer school in June and July, but we might have to do that online. Parents want to get kids into the fresh air. It's summer here. It's spring, but it feels like summer. The weather's beautiful. The flowers are out. The trees are full of green. The city's looking, the cafes should be open. Normal life, socializing, being able to meet up with friends, having meals. Even funerals can't take place in the way that they had. This has changed everything, and it does require us to, as leaders, to see around those corners ahead. I'm conscious of 3 minutes. I've probably gone on longer. I'll stop now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you'll be here with us. Now, may I request very, very honorable Mr. G. Balasubramaniam, who was the former academic director of Central Board of Secondary Education, New Delhi. Mr. Subramaniam, please.
Good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible, right?
Right,
Well,
sir. Right.
well, I think many of the issues Mr. Arup has raised are very, very relevant. But if you take an LCM of all the issues that have been raised, the fundamental thing that appears to me are the two factors, namely the fear and the sense of insecurity, right? Now, as Sigmund Freud would say, when we have fear or insecurity, either we fight or we have a flight. Either we run away from that or we fight the issue. Here we have no option but to fight, and therefore the human tendency has always been to fight the challenges and get into normalcy as early as possible. So my only hunch is that we are not going to wait as much time as we have a premonition. Possibly by the next 3 to 4 months, we should be able to be back in the system because that's exactly what the government would also like to have in order to establish some credibility for all the actions that are being taken. And therefore, there will be a pressure on schools to get to the normal system. But the kind of challenges that you raised in your presentation are very much relevant. Now, the question is, we have online classes at this point of time. Unfortunately, the teachers have been taken off the feet and they really do not know how to handle an online classroom because they are trying to project a formal classroom into an online classroom, and the strategy pedagogically and otherwise are entirely different. So both those, that doesn't suit it. The other point is that the parents, having been trying to a formal classroom, they think that the kind of fee has to be paid only when the schools attend, the children attend the school. But they don't think of the professional services that are being given by an institution. And I think the question of the parents not paying the fees to the school doesn't arise because I think it's a very legal aspect that so long you provide a service, you've got to be paid for that. And whether it's an online or offline, probably you will have to make certain adjustment. And I don't think there's going to be an issue on that. All that what I would think of, which as a curriculum manager, which I would like to feel, that is that probably it's time that our curricula and pedagogy in schools have to undergo a tremendous change, because we are not undergoing a simple change now. It's a kind of a transformation that is going to happen because it's not a top-down thrust, but it's a realization at the social level that things are things have to change. As Mr. Ford pointed out, you have got green skies now, good water now, so we have to sustain that. Probably we have spent billions of dollars to get them corrected, but now we have a natural course by which we have come to the relevance. So my hunch will be that the roles the school have to play in educating the children have to be different. To me, the points are the 5-6 points I would like to put across. One is there is a need to develop social consciousness in the children, right? The entire curricula has to focus on developing a sense of social consciousness, because the globalization which occurred a couple of years back was basically on commercial terms. Now the globalization that is going to happen now is going to be based on humanistic terms, the survival issues that you talked of, and that has to be shared by everybody. The second thing that we need to focus is on health consciousness among the people, whether you're in Spain or Italy or in India. I think the fundamental issues are the same. The health consciousness, which has to be, focus of any schooling system. The relationship management is coming into another very important issue, because at this point of time, the change is that the social distance is good enough at the physiological level, at the physical level, but it should not happen at the emotional level. So I have only one fear, that this kind of social distancing should not disturb the existing psyche of the people, and the relationship management of the should not undergo change. Therefore, we have to get back to lessons on relationship management and building strong relationships both within the country and outside. And another very important point, which I think is very important, is it's on a sense of enterprise, because we should not suffer a kind of low self-esteem because of all that has happened. No sense of fear. We will have to get up and go. I very often fondly recall the words of Oliver Goldsmith, who used to say, "True greatness lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." We have a challenge. We have to get over the challenge, and I think this kind of the fighting spirit has to be incorporated, and therefore the teachers are to be trained. The educational leaders and their thought architecture, their thought leadership has to undergo a paradigm shift. If there is no change in the thought leadership, we'll get back to the same kind of schools that we have, and that needs needs financing. That means teacher support. So teachers have to be trained, and then parents have to be taken. They are the main stakeholders. You have to train the parents, and I think these are some steps, and I'm sure that we will be able to get back to normalcy, but with a different perspective. Not that we should go back to the same kind of schooling. We should get away from the examination-oriented scheme, and we should enrich our children on self-learning, and I think self-paced learning. With technology being available, we should facilitate. Our friend was pointing about the blended learning and flipped classrooms. I will add one to that: the heuristic learning or research-based learning, discovery-based approach. All that could be happen by a proper synergy between a formal classroom and an informal classroom. I think that's going to be the answer in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we are getting little longer, but it's a very fruitful discussion. So I requested Satyaki that if we log out, we log in again. So please bear with us. May I request Mr. Aditya Gupta, who is the CEO of Indian Didactic Association, to please come and speak.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukherjee, and thank you to all the esteemed panelists and delegates who are here. I think some very good points have been raised, and I don't want to be repetitive, but I know that most of us will talk on similar lines. I just want to keep my 3 minutes going and run you very quickly with a couple of points which I jotted down. I think first we need to understand the topic: will schools be same post-COVID? And I was trying to work around what is the impact of COVID and how much does the school need to do for preparing for it. As per the UNESCO, as of 30th March, estimated 87% of the world's students, that is 1.5 billion learners, have been affected by school closures. Over 190 countries have shut school, nationally or locally. But I think I'm still optimistic, especially for the education sector, the way we've bounced back, the way schools and colleges have opened up on online model, even if they're not ready. It's a time to rethink, reassess, and I think redefine processes. Maybe a much needed forced action which the educators or education institutes sometimes I felt were reluctant to take. What I suggest going forward, the schools need to plan for a long-term crisis. I think nobody can predict if the crisis is for a few weeks, months, or years. So plan a long-term strategy. Be ready for rapid changes. It's not a short-term stopgap arrangement. It's a continuous process. What's important, as Bala sir also said, reimagine and redefine schools. Use this time to understand what you need and work on it. This is really crucial. How do you redefine schools? I mean, what's the post-COVID world going to look like? Most importantly, as we feel, investment in technology and teacher training. I know speakers before me have said the same thing. Students will accept any change faster. Educators need to match up, especially the K-12 sector today. I mean, we're catering to Generation Z, Generation Alpha. For them, technology is not a luxury, but it's an extension of their real life. Be ready for them. So technology investment and teacher training investment is going to be the big key here. Blended learning, as spoken earlier by Robert and by Bala sir. Blended learning is the only solution, and realizing the changing role of an educator. Teachers are no longer the way they used to be. They're facilitators. Content is freely available at the click of a button. So we need to facilitate, learning using all of that. Third, rethink curriculums. Think out of the box. We need new methodology, new skills. Employees are looking for creativity, communication, collaboration, emotional intelligence, ability to adapt, work across different geographical boundaries. That's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on the fact that every child is different. There are ways every child will adapt to this new normal as we keep talking. So be ready. Be ready with your emotional support, physiological support, psychological support, academic support. Understand the role of all the stakeholders. Remember, schools can no longer be run as independent identities. The role of families and education institutes has become very interlinked, and we need to understand that. Parents, students, educators, they all play a role. In this, their inputs and their actions matter. This is a two-way process. It can't be just one way from institutes to students. It has to be parents equally involved, and schools have to appreciate that. We were talking about the cost of education side of it. I totally agree. I do not feel there is any way that we can cut down the fee structure. The fees are being charged for the entire year for a service provided, so there should not be. But we don't live in a perfect world. Governments and policies are not in our control. Therefore, my suggestion to institutes, keep costs low, but there's nothing called free lunches. Do not reduce your cost by layoffs. We have seen it in 2008 in the recession. Layoffs never helped anybody. Reduce your frills, reduce your overheads. Future is uncertain. Do not compromise with innovation, risk-taking, and morale of your teams. They matter. It takes time. Learn from the past. Like in Ebola in Liberia, schools were closed for 8 months. Now, the schools are decontaminated systematically, even after epidemic is over, way over. Teachers and school administrators are trained on proper monitoring and prevention measures. They take temperatures every day. They stress on hand wash multiple times, hygiene factors. This is things we need to live by. We will all have to do this. For fast response, we can even learn from Taiwan. Taiwan was a specific country which kept the schools open during all of this time, and they learned from SARS. The preparedness for action is the key. I'll just take you over very, very quickly to a quick picture. And I think if I can just show you a picture here, and this will show you the drasticness of what can happen. This looks crazy, but this is what they did in this pandemic. Imagine the children learning out of their boxes. And if you see, the masks the children were wearing were taken off only during the meal times. Now, this is crazy times, but we have to understand this is reality. We may be able to face it. Will have to get ready for all of this kind of readiness anytime this pandemic comes back. Remember, our school buildings will stay the same. Processes will change. What and how we teach will change. Let's be ready for it. There's absolutely no substitute to the skills and values which a child learns in a school environment. So the only way is, let's be ready. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditya.
Sir,
I think Aditya
sir, I just repeat. Sir, I just repeat that since we have all come for a great purpose here, and as you said, that we'll be continuing, I request all that, because we have quite a number of panelists, and I'm sure lovely, great ideas will be coming up. So kindly rejoin back, since we have not subscribed for it. So just please come back so that we can continue. Few minutes are left for this session to end.
Fine. So let's start with Professor Gross. So Professor Gross, if you could kindly join us.
I think I'm here. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Professor Gross.
Perfect. I'll try the 3-minute challenge and see how I go. A couple of observations. First of all, the question: can schools be the same again? Yes, and better, I think, is the answer. And I would like to include in the better the business planning of private schools, for example. Yeah, because if the business planning changes, then perhaps future crises can be financially better managed. I would like to also, though, draw the attention to the reality that the vast majority of children globally and in the UK don't go to a fee-paying school, but go to state schools. And it almost feels that we're having possibly two kind of conversations here about two kind of children. So, for example, the whole discussion about online learning, in the UK, and I suspect elsewhere in the world, there are plenty of children in the UK who do not have internet access or adequate internet access at home, or have the hardware. So I think we just need to not make a drama out of a crisis around this, but I think we also need to be honest and not believe all the certainly political hype that sits around this. I think I agree with what was said previously, that relationships and communications with parents and communities are extraordinarily important. And I'd like to just highlight a few observations, if I may. One is that this is intensely personal. It is intensely personal for parents, for teachers, and for children. Self-isolating and lockdown and all those things are not normal in human behavior. Neither is keeping the distance for 2 meters. We are people who hold hands and hug and play and do all sorts of things, and that is what comes natural. I incidentally see my now 14-year-old daughter in 12 months' time returning to her school on a bus And of course, our behavior will change. Of course, the experience will teach us things and we'll be able to learn from this. Of course, we will see a better quality of online learning and online teaching. It is not how to cope with an emergency online learning or online teaching, but maybe much more part of the natural processes of schooling. The issue where I have some concern is experience-based learning. And I mean experience-based learning in the real world. How are we getting back to utilizing museums and libraries and galleries and Kidzanias and all sorts of places that connect schooling, i.e. being taught, with education in a wider sense? And I think that's a real challenge. The key role for that will be played by the school. And almost like Barcelona Football Club, Mesca un Club, will probably see its equivalent in Mesca una Escola. The school will be more than the school. It will be the confidence provider. It will be the manager of the crisis rather than the drama. And it will be the stable factor in our provision. I think we really need to look at this positively, but we also need to, it will not change. For the vast majority of children, they will go to school. We will need to manage how that happens. And we need to remind ourselves that in these debates that we are talking about children who whose parents do not have the money to send them to private schools. I think one of the byproducts that we will very likely see, incidentally, is that parents and communities may well value schools more and be more on board to engage with the discussion about where to take the school next. So I am the eternal optimist, but I'm also the eternal realist. And so keep smiling, folks. It's hard. And the final bit of advice I would give is don't believe the politicians, right? And I mean that really genuinely, because I think it was referred to earlier. I think by and large, one of the outcomes is how many governments are incapable of managing data properly and making data work for the better. So I think that's quite a challenge for them. In the meantime, we'll look after our kids as best as we can, and I look forward to them going back to school differently but better. Thank you so much.